Hi there. I'm Lila. And yes, you read that right. My sister's birthday party was booked at my hotel without my permission. She sauntered in with her fiancé's family like royalty, then turned to the staff and told them to kick out that homeless woman. That homeless woman was me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that my entire family knew. They planned it. They expected me to fund it, endure it, and disappear, graciously. The moment I stepped onto my parents' porch in New Orleans, that old ache settled into my chest like muscle memory, like my lungs braced for the impact before my heart even caught up. It was early June, sticky with jasmine and the scent of boiled crawfish. I hadn't been back in 5 months, not because I was busy, but because I knew exactly how this would go. My mother greeted me with that carefully curated smile, the one that stopped just short of affection. "Lila, honey, look at you. Still wearing black, huh?" she chirped, air kissing near my cheek. "You know, a little color wouldn't kill you." I smiled thinly. "Hi, Mom." My father was already halfway through his lasagna, eyes glued to his plate like it held the secret to world peace. And then there was Serenne, sprawled across the love seat in a designer dress she definitely hadn't paid for, sipping wine like it was an audition. "Well, well," she said, rising dramatically. "New Orleans' favorite mystery woman returns. Finally finish alphabetizing your spreadsheets?" I didn't take the bait. I just sat down across from her. The table was set with Mom's best china, the kind that only came out for holidays, interventions, or announcements. That should have been my first clue. Dinner began stiff. Mom talked about the weather, Dad mumbled something about traffic, and Serenne snapped selfies, always cropping me out of frame. I should have walked out. But instead, I bit into a piece of bread and tried to convince myself it was just dinner. Then Serenne stood up, raising her glass with the drama of a woman delivering a monologue. "I have something exciting to share," she beamed. "My 33rd is coming up, and it's going to be iconic, Kardashian-level iconic." I kept chewing. I found the perfect rooftop in the warehouse district. Champagne wall, live music, drone footage, and a horse-drawn carriage. Think Paris, but with better lighting. She paused. Total cost? Just under $150,000. I nearly choked. Before I could react, she pointed at me like casting a spell. "And you get to make it happen." "Come on, sis. It's not like you're doing anything real with your money." The room fell silent. Even the ceiling fan seemed to stop spinning. I looked to Mom, waiting for her to shut it down. Instead, she tilted her head. "Sweetheart, it really would mean a lot to your sister. You've been so blessed lately. Isn't it time to give back a little?" My father didn't even look up. That's when it clicked. I wasn't family. I was funding, the bank account in black. I excused myself before I said something that would detonate the room. Back at my place, I poured myself a glass of wine, trying to wash away the taste of betrayal. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Jules, my operations manager and the only person in my life who could smell bullshit through Wi-Fi. "Check Serena's Instagram story." I opened it. There she was, split screen. On one side, she was sipping champagne with her event planner. On the other, on one side of the split screen, my sister posed with champagne and her event planner, all smiles and curated filters. On the other, she'd filmed my car, 10 years old, paint a little sun-faded, pulling into my driveway. Her caption read, "When your rich sister lives like she's in witness protection." And the comments? Brutal. At least she's not pretending to be someone she's not. That house screams anxiety. LMFA, oh, she drives that? I sat frozen, phone in hand, jaw clenched so hard I thought my molars might crack. I wanted to scream, to reply with a receipt for every brick of my business, every permit, every sleepless night I spent building a life she treated like a joke. But I didn't. I just stared at the screen, letting the quiet fury settle in my bones. She thought this was about a party. She had no idea what she'd just started. For 2 days, I went radio silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. Jules offered to toss my phone into the Mississippi, and I almost let her. Instead, I muted the noise and buried myself in zoning permits and backlogged contracts. The work helped. But every time I opened my laptop, I knew the video was still out there, still gaining likes, still being reshared by people who didn't know me, who thought it was hilarious that I didn't flaunt my money like I'd won the lottery instead of earning every damn dollar. "She's not going to stop," Jules said, tapping her fingers on the conference table. "I know," I said, "but she's not the one I'm worried about." Jules gave me a look, but I didn't explain. I'd seen this coming, slow and quiet, like water damage behind drywall. And now the wall had cracked, revealing just how deep the rot had spread. That afternoon, as I was reviewing contracts, I saw a familiar silhouette through the frosted glass of my office door, and my stomach dropped. My mother didn't make appointments. She arrived like a hurricane with good shoes. "Thought I'd stop by," she said, breezing in with a Tupperware of banana bread and unsolicited judgment. "Still no receptionist? You should make this place more inviting." I smiled tightly. "Hey, Mom." She sat without being asked. "You're working too hard, just like your father, though he never was great with money. You get that from me." I stayed silent, jaw set, while Jules watched from her desk like a sentry. Then, with a casual flick of the wrist, my mother pulled a cream-colored envelope from her handbag. "I brought something for you to look at." I opened it, expecting a thank you card or another passive-aggressive invitation. Instead, it was a printed budget breakdown. Serenne's 33rd Dream Event. Midway down, highlighted in pink, venue contribution. Lila. Confirmed. I blinked. Confirmed? My voice was sharp. Who confirmed this? My mother didn't flinch. "Sweetheart, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. You know Serenne doesn't have that kind of money. Your father and I are on a fixed income now. She's your sister." I stared at the page like it might combust. She humiliated me. Publicly. Online, she was being playful. She mocked my life. She's going through a phase. I looked at her, and all I could see was decades of quiet expectation, of duty masked as love. "You're asking me to fund a woman who turned my life into a punchline?" "I'm not asking," she said coolly. "I'm showing you the plan. You've always been the responsible one. This is just what's expected." And there it was. Expected. Not requested. Not discussed. Just decided. I picked up the Tupperware and handed it back. "Thanks for the bread," I said flatly. Her expression faltered, a flicker of hurt beneath the polished control. "Don't be like this, Lila. You're making it so dramatic." "I think you've confused the definition of that word," I said coldly, my voice steady despite the wildfire behind my ribs. My mother stood, smoothing her blouse like she'd just signed a contract instead of dropped a financial bomb. "Let me know if you want the planner's info," she added breezily. "You'll love her. Very boutique." And just like that, she walked out, leaving behind her perfume, that smug assurance, and the envelope that now sat like a threat on my desk. I didn't tear it up. I didn't yell. I walked to the window and stared down at the empty street, letting my jaw clamp shut like a door against everything I wanted to scream. They hadn't even asked. They'd just assumed I'd pay, that I'd fund the illusion, the performance, the lie. Because that's what I always did. I don't know how long I stood there, watching the day fade into dusk, letting the quiet dig its fingers into my spine. When I finally moved, I walked through the silence of my own house, past the hollow rooms, into the kitchen. The banana bread still sat on the counter, cloaked in cellophane like it was a prize instead of a bribe. She used to make that exact bread when I was sick. As a child, I believed it meant love. But now, it felt like a sugar-coated IOU. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop, pretending I'd find comfort in lease reports or payroll summaries. But my hands wouldn't move. And then the memory struck like a stone to the chest. I was 10, lying in a hospital bed under scratchy white sheets, too frail to sit up, while machines beeped beside me like a lullaby in Morse code. My mother sat in the corner chair, wrapped in her coat, whispering, "You saved me, Lila. You made me strong." I'd clung to those words like gospel. But the next night, I'd heard her on the phone with Dad, her voice sharp with fury. "We gave up everything for her," she snapped. "I quit my job, Martin. You're working night shifts like a damn mule. I don't care what it takes. We're not putting her in some god-awful place." And when she hung up, she smiled at me again. Gentle, rehearsed. "We gave up so much for you, sweetheart. Just promise you'll never forget that, okay?" And I had. I'd carried that weight like a good daughter. I thought it was devotion. I didn't realize it was a contract. I sat in my kitchen now, an adult with a title, a business, a life, and still they came. Not to ask how I felt, but to remind me what I owed. Every favor dressed in guilt, every compliment dipped in critique. It wasn't love. It was leverage. My chest ached. My freezer was full of frozen dinners, my calendar full of meetings. But no one asked if I was okay. They just counted what I could give. That night, I remembered the college tuition talks, how I understood that Serenne's creative path meant dropping majors like shoes while I worked 2 jobs. I remembered holidays where my thoughtful gifts were met with, "Wow, not bad for someone with no husband." Every sacrifice I made disappeared, while theirs came with lifelong billing statements. I opened a draft email I'd started to my mother. Something polite, diplomatic. "I appreciate you stopping by. I just wish things had been discussed more openly." I deleted the whole thing. No edits, just vanished. Then I walked to the freezer, opened the door, and slid the banana bread inside, tucked it right between the peas and a half-frozen bottle of vodka. I closed the door with quiet finality. "I'm not your debt to collect," I whispered. "I'm not your redemption story." I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. But for the first time in years, I felt the ground hold me. Not because I was wanted, but because I was finally done being used. I used to think being needed meant being loved. Now I know better. The next morning, I was back at my desk downtown before the coffee shop across the street even flicked on its lights. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. I was focused, sharper than I'd felt in months. My body had decided it was done with the soft work of emotion. Now it wanted clean lines, sharp edges, precision. I skimmed through the flood of client inquiries, vendor confirmations, and autumn wedding requests without absorbing a word, until Jules strode in, holding a manila envelope like it was ticking. "Courier dropped this off 10 minutes ago," she said, flat. "From Serenne's fiancé's assistant, labeled urgent. Guess whose name it's addressed to?" She dropped it on my desk. My full name was printed in glossy serif below the heading, Monroe Events Group. I opened it slowly. Inside was a contract packet thick with gold-trimmed tabs and overpriced branding. Very Serenne. It looked standard at first, a venue reservation agreement for some posh rooftop called the Imperial Deckhouse. Then I saw it, buried on page 6, under a subclause about liability. In the event the booking party failed to pay within 30 business days, the listed family financial liaison, Lila called her, would be responsible for all unpaid balances, fees, and legal penalties. I stared at it, blinked, then laughed. Dry, sharp. She really thought I'd just sign this, I muttered. Jules folded her arms. She thought guilt would do it for you. I held the contract tighter, not enough to crumple, just enough to feel the weight of it press back. No words came. I didn't need them. I slid the packet into my bottom drawer and labeled it in my mind. Evidence. If she put this much effort into managing her finances, I said, she wouldn't need a backup wallet with my face on it. Jules arched an eyebrow. Want me to shred it? I shook my head. Let her wonder. Then I opened my email and typed a cold, precise message to Monroe Events Group. No greeting, no pleasantries. Subject, recontract request. Body. We do not process documents submitted through emotional channels. All future communication must be routed through legal. Unsolicited contracts will not be acknowledged. I hit send. Then I opened my calendar, scrolled to next week, and created a new recurring event. Title: Monitor Financial Setups. Family. I looked at the screen a moment longer, whispered aloud, "That's the last time they catch me off guard." This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was business. And in business, I don't scream. I build walls. Walls high enough that even the guilt can't climb. Saturday mornings at Somerset used to be my sanctuary. Quiet walkthroughs with a clipboard, the rustle of linens, the soft tap of heels echoing in the marble foyer. But not this morning. Something buzzed beneath the surface, like a current running through the walls. Jules walked beside me, tablet in hand, eyes scanning the latest updates. She paused near the mirrored hallway, frowning. "Did you approve the white gardenias for next weekend's VIP?" she asked. I shook my head. "I haven't touched next weekend's calendar." Her brow tightened. "Well, someone did. The request's in, along with ice sculptures, imported candles from Provence, and a special sound permit for live music." I walked over, eyes scanning the order entry, and the initials SC3 hit me like a slap. My chest tightened instantly. "She wouldn't," I murmured, barely audible. Jules tilted her head knowingly. "She might." We rushed to the back office and pulled up the booking records. I bypassed the third-party platform and went straight into our internal system. And there it was. Somerset Grand Luxe Package, booked through an external agency, set for Ivy's birthday weekend. No heads up, no call, no courtesy. She booked my venue like it was a casual Airbnb, like I was some nameless concierge. "She's trying to force your hand," Jules said, voice low. "If the party's already in motion, you'll look petty pulling the plug." And she was right. It was manipulative, but clever. Desperate, but calculated. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the security feed from the night before, and there she was. Ivy, tottering through my ballroom in heels far too high for cobblestone, animatedly chatting with a planner I didn't recognize. She spun in circles, pointed grandly toward the terrace, laughing as if the chandeliers were already hers. "She's acting like she owns the place," Jules muttered. But I stayed still, eyes locked on the screen. "She thinks I won't touch her in public," I said flatly. Jules knew better than to speak into that silence. Ivy thought this was a game of optics and elegance, of weaponized smiles and curated apologies. But this was my backyard now, and the rules here were mine. "Don't cancel anything," I said finally. Jules blinked. "You're letting her go through with it?" "I'm letting her bury herself." I opened a new folder on my desktop. SC, unauthorized booking. Subfolder, communications. Every document, every invoice, every demand. She wants this party to be her crown, I said slowly. Let's make sure she earns every inch of it. Jules grinned. You want a paper trail? I want a mountain. We returned to the foyer as if nothing had changed, passing staff setting up a bridal brunch, all blissfully unaware of the quiet war forming behind the curtains. This wasn't about floral arrangements or guest lists anymore. This was about legacy, about who owned the name on the gate. Later that week, I was back in my home office, a soft breeze slipping in through the cracked windows, carrying gardenia and peace with it. For once, I'd found a rhythm: floor plans, emails, coffee. And then my phone buzzed. Jules, you might want to check ballroom camera 3. It's happening, no questions. I clicked into the live feed instantly. Somerset's ballroom lit up my screen, chandeliers sparkling, gold sconces casting a warm glow, and then Ivy stormed into frame. 5-inch stilettos, fire in her eyes. She was mid-rant before I could even adjust the volume. Is this the color scheme? Are you joking? This looks like a middle school prom. Her voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. A decorator stood frozen, helpless, as Ivy flung a rose from a centerpiece onto the floor. You call this luxury? My followers are going to drag me. Behind her, a young staffer passed, arms full of linens. Ivy snapped her fingers. You, linen girl! That is not the fabric I approved. Jesus, is anyone here even literate? The girl froze, confused, unsure, clearly ESL, and gave a nervous smile before hurrying off. Ivy rolled her eyes. Unbelievable! You let amateurs run this place? I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I just watched. Cold, focused, unwavering. Because she didn't realize the feed was recording, and I didn't plan to stop her. And then she did it. Snatched a clipboard off the table, scanned it with a sneer, and slammed it down so hard it skidded across the marble floor and clattered to a stop. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just watched, steady as stone. That's when Jules stepped into frame, calm and composed, her posture sharp enough to slice through the tension. This is a private venue under contract, she said, her voice ringing out like a gavel. Our team deserves to be treated with professional respect. Ivy turned slowly, her eyes dragging across Jules like she was inspecting dust. Oh, please, she scoffed. Do you even know who I am? Without missing a beat, Jules replied, Do you? And for a heartbeat, the air went still. Ivy scoffed again and spun away, muttering about ungrateful staff and lawyers on speed dial. But I wasn't listening anymore. I'd heard everything I needed. I leaned back in my chair, replaying the final seconds of the footage. Her voice, her tantrum, her entitlement. Each frame a gift she didn't know she was giving. I minimized the video and opened the folder already waiting on my desktop. Incident response. Inside, Section 3.2 of the client contract, highlighted in ironclad. Grounds for termination and permanent ban. Hostile behavior. Staff harassment. Property disruption. Every box, checked. I dragged the footage in. 2 days later, Somerset's ballroom looked like something out of a magazine. Golden chairs lined ivory linens. Fresh orchids adorned the staircases, and chandeliers glittered overhead like they knew something. Ivy arrived with the kind of strut that belongs on a runway, breathy laughs punctuating her every step. Drew followed, handsome but distant, and his parents, Claire and Grant Monroe, entered with a grace that only came from old money. You could tell they were the kind who measured rooms not by size, but by silence. Isn't this perfect? Ivy gushed, gesturing grandly at the staircase. It screams legacy. I watched from my upstairs office, the security feed crisp on my screen. Jules stood at the entrance, impeccable as always. She glanced up at the camera and gave the faintest nod. It was time. Ivy launched into her usual performance. These chandeliers? Imported from Austria, custom made, the owner's super exclusive, only works with top-tier clients. Claire tilted her head. And who's the owner? Ivy's smile twitched. Oh, we have connections, she deflected, voice too airy. Grant narrowed his eyes. So you don't know? Before she could lie again, Jules stepped forward and tapped her tablet. The music stopped mid-chord. Silence fell like a curtain, and then I descended. My heels clicked against the marble, deliberate and sharp. Every eye turned. I stopped halfway down the staircase, held Ivy's gaze, and gave her the faintest smile. Then I descended the rest, slow and calm. Welcome to Somerset, I said, offering my hand to Claire. I'm Lila Calder, owner and creative director of this estate. Grant's brow lifted. Claire's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Ivy looked like she'd swallowed glass. You own this place? She stammered. But you live in that tiny house. I turned to her, cool and unbothered. A smart businesswoman doesn't wear her assets. She builds them, quietly, and lets them speak for themselves. Claire smiled, slow and deliberate. How refreshing. I was beginning to think no one under 60 believed in discretion anymore, but Grant Monroe's nod and cool, measured, impressive, Ms. Calder, very impressive, reminded me some still did. Drew's eyes met mine, not with pity or uncertainty, but with recognition, the kind that lands when the truth finally clears the fog. Ivy stood stunned, lips parted, searching for something to say but coming up empty. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Turning to Jules, I said, "Please escort the Monroes to the East Terrace. I'll join them shortly." Jules gave a subtle nod and guided them ahead. Ivy lingered, breath shallow, hands balled into trembling fists. I didn't spare her a glance. For the first time in my life, I didn't crave their applause. I already had the floor. The walk to the terrace was slow, deliberate. The Monroes moved through Somerset with a dignified quiet, admiring the grounds with nods and murmured approval. Near the fountain, Claire pulled me aside. Ivy trailed behind us, desperate to wedge herself back into relevance. You built all of this? Claire asked. From the ground up, I replied. She looked me over with that knowing gaze only seasoned women possess, a blend of evaluation and approval. You're exactly the kind of woman our family respects. Quiet strength. Real results behind us. Ivy's voice cracked. Wait, Claire, can we talk? It was the first time she'd sounded like the little sister she actually was, but Claire didn't turn around. Grant joined a moment later, resting a firm hand on Drew's shoulder. You may want to reconsider your priorities, he said. Drew looked at Ivy, then back at me. He didn't speak, but his silence spoke volumes. It didn't protect her. It exposed her. Ivy crumbled in the hallway after they left, collapsing against the mirrored wall, tears streaking her makeup. Her sobs echoed faintly, but I didn't slow down. I didn't sneer. I walked right past her, heels clicking, head high, pulse steady. That night I returned home to a dark house, save for the warm light in the kitchen. The quiet no longer felt like absence. It felt earned. I sipped tea slowly, savoring the stillness, when my phone buzzed. A single text from my father. Can we talk? I called before I could decide not to. He answered instantly. Hi, Princess. I said nothing. Then, I just think maybe don't push things further, okay? It's still her birthday week. That was it. Not I'm proud of you. Not you handled it well. Just don't make waves. I let out a quiet laugh. I stood there, I said, right in front of all of you, and you still didn't see me." He sighed. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I replied. "It always has been. Look, we just want the family to—" "It's never been intact," I cut in. "It's been built around Serenne like a house of cards." He didn't argue. "I'm not mad," I said, finding myself surprisingly calm. "I'm just done." He hesitated. "You don't mean that." "I do." I hung up. Then I slid the phone into the drawer beside the sink and shut it gently. Outside, the city sparkled. A soft breeze carried jazz from somewhere down the block, a song full of ache and clarity. I stood there, not waiting on a doorbell or a text, just breathing. I hadn't lost my family. I'd simply stopped asking them to show up. 2 quiet weeks passed. No headlines, no apologies, just stillness that didn't echo. It settled. Then one morning over lukewarm coffee, I spotted the email. Subject line: "I'm sorry," from Martin Calder. I clicked it before I could stop myself. The email was short, almost disarmingly so. "You were right. I should have stood up. I'm sorry. Dad." No excuses, no sugar-coated deflections, no, "But you know how your sister is." Just a sentence, late but clean. I read it 5 times before I hit delete, and when I did, I smiled. Not out of triumph, but closure. Somerset hadn't slowed. If anything, it was blooming. We had 3 weddings lined up for next month, 2 corporate galas, and a high-profile charity fundraiser drawing attention from local media. Jules was fielding requests from planners across 4 states now, and when she walked into my office with her usual calm efficiency, tablet in hand, she said, "Claire Monroe's niece wants to book. She asked for you directly." I didn't flinch. "Of course she did. We'll take good care of her." I meant every word. That same day, my phone buzzed with a blog headline: "Influencer event canceled. Somerset denies involvement. Speculation mounts." And beneath it, are these luxury events just for show? Inside the collapse of a brand. They never used Ivy's name, but they didn't need to. Later that night, curiosity won. I checked her account. Ivy Social. The latest video was still up, but everything about it had changed. No glam lighting, no filters, no soft piano score. Just her. Bare-faced, dimly lit, sitting in silence for nearly 2 minutes before she even spoke. I didn't watch the whole thing, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. There was no satisfaction in it, no flame of revenge, just still air in my chest. I set my phone down, screen face down, and stepped out onto the porch with a glass of wine. The air was warm, the street quiet, the sunset casting everything in soft gold. I'd passed by my parents' house that morning, slowed for a heartbeat, then kept going. Not from bitterness, just absence of pull. For years, I thought peace came when someone finally admitted they were wrong, when the ones who hurt you made it right, when the balance was restored and justice declared. But peace is quieter than that. Peace is walking away, even when no one asks you to. It's deleting a message and never needing to reply. It's saying no, without a list of justifications. I sat with my wine, the evening folding around me like an exhale, and I thought, maybe that's the real revenge, not winning, just walking away clean. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that peace doesn't arrive when others start treating you better. It begins the moment you start treating yourself like you matter. I spent years thinking loyalty meant shrinking, that being a good daughter, a good sister, meant silence and sacrifice, meant contorting myself into smaller shapes so someone else could shine brighter. But shrinking saves no one. You can still love your family and walk away. You can stop chasing applause from people who never even looked at you properly. You can draw a boundary without burning everything down. I didn't win by raising my voice. I won by finally hearing my own. So let me ask you, have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Have you carried guilt that was never yours to begin with? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your truth. If this story resonates, type 1 or let me know where you're listening from. And if it didn't connect, that's okay too. Share why. Was it the message, the pacing, the ending? This space is for real people with real stories. And if you want more moments like this, raw, honest, unpolished, don't forget to subscribe. You never know. The next story might finally put your own into words. Thanks for spending your time with me. I'll see you in the next one.